What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Moonshine, Dan, the Hillbilly Hellraiser. How you doing? Doing all right. Can't really complain. Uh, all going well for the most part, which hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. So knock on wood. Um, but yeah, if you are watching this, then I have surpassed 420 subscribers, and in the spirit of 420, dude, I figured I would do a video recommending some bands that I would consider 420 friendly. You're probably thinking to yourself, first of all, oh, what's he gonna choose? You might not be thinking that at all, but we'll see. Um, so I'll go into some of the stuff I didn't choose. There's some where you think it might be glaringly obvious, like Sleep and Sleep's Holy Mountain. I didn't do that primarily just because I wanted to focus on bands that might be a little bit more off the beaten path, and it also might be a little bit on the nose. Doing the album of the band, I have a banner hanging up in the background, but that is very much a very important album to me, very influential and impactful as far as bands and albums that I listen to. Um, I've spent a lot of time with that album over the years. I really enjoy it. It's probably I don't know how high up on the list of best albums of all time it is for me, but it's certainly high up there. It's definitely one that I can listen to over and over and over again. And just to needle people a little bit more, you can certainly lift to this. I do it quite a bit, and it's something that I really enjoy it. I enjoy that band and that album. It was something that I discovered real early on when I was getting into underground stuff and leaning more towards the doom and then stoner side of things was kind of where my mindset was at, particularly at the time. I definitely like a lot more of the slow or mid-tempo stuff. Not that I don't like fast stuff, but I can just get into that. I can get into the grooves and the rhythms a lot more with the slow, more melodic and groovy stuff as opposed to it just being 10,000 miles an hour. But of course, with anything, if you're listening, you can lock into rhythms and stuff like that and really catch a wave, as it were. But yeah, that was one of them. Another one was Bongzilla. I don't own anything by Bongzilla, even though I enjoy their music. I think it's pretty good, but I don't own any of their stuff. So it was kind of irrelevant to the topic at hand, but also very cool, very 420 metal band that could be brought up. Another one's Cannabis Corpse. Again, same thing. I don't own any of their stuff. And then on top of that, they're fine as far as a band goes, but I feel like the novelty of the band wears off very quickly, at least for me. It's not something that like it's one of those things where the music is decent, and the albums are funny, the song titles are funny, and but then it kind of again the novelty wears off pretty quick for me. But as far as a weed themed band, this would definitely be one of them if people were to make mention of them. Another one would be Weed Eater. Definitely, definitely a 420 friendly band, no doubt. Dixie Dave's a maniac. I love Weed Eater. Dixie Dave rules. He's a character. Used to be in Buzz Oven, which is another favorite band of mine. But yeah, I didn't add them. I could have pulled out And Justice for Y'all or God Luck and Good Speed or something like that, but I didn't. It was just one of those things that it wasn't one that I really thought of at the time when I was doing this. I had already had some things in mind. It probably if I'd have added them and a couple of the other ones, it probably would make this video 2 hours long with the way that I babble. But yeah, so as far as other ones, trying to think of a couple other things I might mention. I'm sure there's a couple, but as far as ones that right off the top of my head that I could think of that I didn't add that people might think that I would have pointed out, those are probably some of them. But let's get into the ones that I did. So I have five here, and again, hopefully, it won't take me forever to talk about it. But first of all, we're gonna go with. Uh, I've talked about them before. Mentioned many times in other videos. Their last album was part of my top 20 of 2023. Was actually in the top 10. But this was their 2019 release. Came out originally on Cosmic Artifacts, but this is a Nuclear Blast reissue that just came out. I was very excited to see Nuclear Blast reissue this because I've been having a hell of a time trying to get a hand on it. So the album I'm talking about is Woodland Rites by Green Lung. My buddy Justin, one of my old high school chums who I still keep in contact with to this day, he alerted me to this band. He's like, "Oh, Dan, you got to check this band out. They're friggin' awesome, and they're probably right up your alley." Because he knows I like a lot of the like stonery, doomy kind of stuff. And yeah, he was right. This is fantastic. They are a five piece from London, England. I would say they're a culty psych band with doom elements. Proggy's probably too strong a word, but definitely the musicianship is pretty high as far as the band itself goes. They incorporate a lot of harmonies between the lead vocals and the backing vocals. But yeah, just very killer stuff. It's almost like if there were modern Hammer horror films, I feel like a lot of this would be the soundtrack to it. As far as really standout tracks on here, "Let the Devil In" is fantastic. Templar's Dawn is great. May Queen, Into the Wild's great. The whole thing is really good. It's just a great album. It's 8 tracks altogether, and it is 42 minutes and 50 seconds long. But yeah, and it's a killer one. And probably my favorite is tracks 1 and 2, Initiation into Woodland Rites. I just love the instrumental, how it starts out, and I don't know. Some people think this is kind of lame, or you know, what are you talking about here? But I love the guitar leads, the twin leads that they have towards the end of Initiation. It kind of reminded me of watching Metalocalypse and hearing Death Clock and seeing it like with Brendan Small, the way he would construct some of the songs for the cartoon, because I love animated stuff. A lot of American animation I'm really into, and that was one of them I really enjoyed. But that's a really cool intro going right into Woodland Rites. Have a little bit of a sample going on there, and then just this killer crunchy riff that is the base for everything that happens in this song throughout. And yeah, just killer, fantastic stuff.
What you saw, you'll never forget.
if you have not heard Woodland Rights by Greenlung, go do yourself a favor and check it out. If you're into some of the stuff that I mentioned, as far as my description of it, this would be right up your alley. Sorry, just listen to stuff in the background a little bit. So next up, we're returning from across the pond and we're heading to Detroit Rock City. We're going to Detroit, Michigan. And next up, we're doing from 2010 Hell's Headbangers. We're talking Acid Witch, Stoned. Look at that. Acid Witch is primarily a two-piece from Detroit. They do get some people to do some live stuff for them. Uh, but yeah, this is fantastic stuff. It's Slasher Dave and Shagrot. They pretty much do everything in house, everything from the recording and the writing to the artwork. This is all Shagrot, him doing that stuff. Just fantastic artwork. I mean, you can see right there, just all the attention to detail and the creativity that goes on there. You know, he certainly had to sell something to the devil to get that sort of creativity and artistic work. Where I would say that Greenlung is a band that is like the soundtrack to a Hammer horror film. This would be the soundtrack to some sleazy 70s, early 80s exploitation horror that you would find at some dingy drive-in. You might even hear this playing in the background while some tube television is shorting out in some dingy living room. It's got friggin' beer cans with black candles in it. It's lit all over the place. Maybe it's Halloween time and some creepy ghoul walks to the door and brings a candy dish out, and all you see in there is friggin' bloodied candy corn and rotten teeth and eyeballs. That would be how I would describe Acid Witch. It's got a lot of Halloween elements. It's a love letter to Halloween, horror, and the devil. It'd be the best way I can describe it. Lots of synths going on with the songs. Lots of death doomy kind of. It's almost very much a death doom project. Very eerie, spooky, malevolent, almost hallucinogenic at times would be the way I would describe some of the songs on here. It's got how many tracks? We got 10 songs on here. Probably as far the whole thing is pretty decent. The one thing I will say is that I could see where somebody could say that the lyrics are kind of goofy and juvenile, but I think it probably campy is a bit better of a word, but that's part of the appeal. Because, like I say, when this is very much like a Halloween themed kind of band, so that translates in the songwriting, in the whole presentation of the band. So lyrically, it's a little on the nose as far as that type of lyrical content goes, but that's again part of the appeal. But I could almost see when I was listening to a couple of the songs, just taking notes and everything like that, I could see where somebody would say, this stuff is kind of this stuff's kind of goofy, but I enjoy it, and I know a lot of other people too do too, because they're a very popular band. As far as my favorite songs on here, Witchfinder Finder's really good, Thunder and Hooves, Sabbath of the Undead, Metal Movie, Marijuana Massacre, Meltdown. That's a fantastic title. Try saying that 3 times fast. But probably one of my favorites is Stone to the Grave. I really love the dynamic shifts and the tempo changes that the song presents, the stories that it tells. And that's the other thing with the lyrics, going back that a little bit, is just the way the stories that they craft. It's just good stuff. And this is probably where I would say with Green Lung, this is the sort of Green Lung's the sort of thing that you would play at some very hoity-toity ritual that's going on in the woods. This is something that would be played at a campfire with some cheap beer, good bud, and a bunch of cool heads surrounded, blasting on some cheap boombox would be the best way I could describe listening to this, the best listening experience. Otherwise, just sitting in a room with a bunch of either black lights or red lights or something like that, and then just going off into the distance, as it were. But yeah, man, definitely go check out Acid Witch. They're a very cool band. They are tailor made for any Halloween listening experience, and I would highly recommend them. So next up is this is a three piece from Los Angeles. This was their debut album from 2004. The band that's in question is Sasquatch. They're more of a hard rock, kind of stoner rock, blues based, kind of almost I would say bar band would be the best way to describe them. This is a band that's very tailor made for like a bar viewing, bar live bar band, just sitting there hanging out, having a couple beers, maybe rolling one up if the possibility presents itself. And it's very cool. Lots of super fuzzy, overdriven guitars, uh, clean, raspy vocals, uh, just very straightforward meat and potatoes rhythm section, very pounding drums, lots of groove and lots of rhythms throughout this entire thing. Uh, yeah, and they're a killer band. I got to see them in Orlando back in 2020. I invited my buddy Chris to it. It was one of the first shows he ever went to, and we got to see them and Hippie Death Cult, and it was a good time. I still wasn't at the point where I was buying stuff online because I've never really done a whole hell of a lot of online shopping up until a couple of years ago, which I'll get into it in a little bit. Um, so never going out of my way to pick up their stuff online, going to see them, they had everything available at the show. So I went ham and bought all of their albums on CD, and I think they were very happy about that. And then I bought a poster which I used to have hanging up in here, but I put out in a different room, out in the living room. And yeah, and I got to see Hippie Death Cult, which has turned out to be one of my favorite new bands that I've discovered. But this is a fantastic album. 10 songs on here. Roller's a really cool one. Chemical Lady, Money Man is really cool. I love the main riff on that and the groove in it. But probably one of my favorite songs is Cracks in the Pavement.
Gave you all the reasons in a world where changing seasons fill my head. Where you lie when you feel lonely, but you know you're my one and only friend. Only friend, only friend, yeah.
just love the sound and the style of that, and just very, very, very cool stuff. I don't know if they're putting out any new music. Um, the band on this one is different from the one that I saw outside of Keith Gibbs, the guitar and vocalist. The band is newest lineup is Jason Casanova on bass and Craig Riggs. I think that's, yeah, Craig Riggs on drums. But interesting enough is when I was talking to the guys and getting to chat with them a little bit and interacting with them at their merch stand. I didn't know this at the time, but another band who I'm familiar with from back in the day, this band Roadsaw, Craig Riggs was actually the vocalist for him. So it would have been kind of cool to know that and had a little chat with him about that because it probably would have caught him off guard that somebody just randomly at some small bar in some little club in Orlando is like, oh yeah, I really love that Roadsaw that you did too. That was cool stuff. But it is what it is, missed opportunities and such. But if you like the little sample there, go check out Sasquatch. They're a very cool band. And I will add one little story and then we'll move on here. When I saw them, I had my Road Warriors Hawk and Animal shirt on, and Craig was like, "Oh, that's cool, man. We just did something with the Road Warrior." And he was talking about the Road Warrior, the movie, not the pro wrestling tag team. So it was funny because he was scrolling through his phone, getting ready to show it to me and all that, and it was taking him forever because he was scrolling through his Facebook trying to find it. And I don't know if you know this or realize this about me. I've got a bit of a dry sense of humor, and it's sometimes sarcastic. So he's scrolling, trying to do this thing, and I just kind of very dryly looked at him, and I was like, "Oh man, I really hope this is worth it. As long as this is taken." And I don't know if I offended him or not, but it was just, at least to me, it was funny. But I just kind of gave him one of those. I'm just joking. I'm just messing with you. I'm just breaking balls. So anyway, but point being is that's that right there. You can see that right there. Very cool stuff. Definitely a little bit more along the lines of Lord Humongous than Hawk and Animal, but cool stuff nonetheless. But yeah, go check them out. Sasquatch, pretty killer band. So next up, like I was talking about, uh, not doing a whole lot of online shopping up until probably like 2023, around that time. And I found an eBay store called Mad Rush Media, and that was one of the first places that became one of my go-tos as far as doing online shopping. And because I had never set up an eBay account before. I didn't know anything about PayPal or any of that stuff. I'm very much I've stayed, I mean, I've always had a computer for years, but I've never really engaged in a lot of computery stuff. So a lot of this is all very new to me. It's been quite a thrilling and new experience as far as a lot of this stuff goes. So you go from not doing any sort of online commerce to doing recorded videos for YouTube. It's kind of like a wild transition, but a transition nonetheless. So I was going through Mad Rush's store recently, and I'm not a big live album guy. I don't know. I'm not a huge live album guy. I just not a big fan of them by and large. If they're good, I'll listen to them, but I don't have a lot of live music. But I had to get this one. I think I stole it out of somebody's cart, but it is what it is. I had to pick this one up, and I got to cover it up because there's some nudity going on there. But we are talking Electric Wizard, Black Magic Rituals, and Perversions. This came out late last year on Spine Farm, and this is fantastic. If you, the story behind this is that when the entire world was in lockdown back in 2020, Europe got hit the hardest, or at least one of the hardest. They were really kind of draconian with some of the nonsense they were doing with as far as all that went. And England was no exception. Electric Wizard being based over there, I'm sure that really stymied a lot of any efforts that they were going to put forth as far as doing anything with the band. I was fortunate enough to see them in 2019, probably about I'd say that was in October of 2019. So we're talking like 4 months before the crap hit the fan worldwide. So I got very lucky to see them. Never seen them before. They had midnight open for them. It was a very killer show. But this is something that they did while they were stuck at home. They went into their own recording studio, put together a set list, and they played everything live. And it's fantastic. I reached out to Eddie from Realms of Rock, Realms of Metal, and I was like, hey, bro, have you heard this? This is awesome. Because if you've never seen or experienced Electric Wizard live, it is a thing of beauty. It's a thing to behold. It is an experience in and of itself, almost borderline religious experience, dare I say. Very cool to see them. Like when I saw them, it was at Janus Live, which is an open air venue, and to see the clouds of weed smoke forming all around everybody, and them opening up with Witch Cult Today, which they do on this one and do a fantastic job. It's just such a killer song. But you just see a whole sold out crowd, and everybody's just nodding and getting into the groove of it all. And that didn't last long because by the next song, a pit opened up and people were going ape shit. And it was like, well, okay, that didn't last very long. But this is a fantastic set list. I mean, they start with Dope Throne, going to Incense for the Damned, Black Mass, into Witch Cult Today, into Satanic Rites of Drugula, which is a fantastic song. Closing out with Funeralopolis, the Chosen Few's on here. It's just a fantastic live album. Definitely one I would recommend if you like Electric Wizard, if you're a fan of live metal, as far as on a recorded and bronzed for posterity. I would show you the rest of this. The only thing I can really show you is I can show you that the inside of the digipack, because the rest of it, there is a metric ton of nudity happening in this, and I know that BroodTube does not like that. They don't like seeing the boobies on their platform, so I'll be careful as far as that goes. But yeah, man, go check that out. That is a fantastic release. A must for any Electric Wizard fan, and yeah, just killer stuff. I love that, and I don't think I would have to. Electric Wizard is good in any setting, in any vibe, in any sort of state of sobriety or otherwise. It just killer stuff. So finally, this one is it's weird. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this band, and I know for a fact because a lot of people watch my channel are a little bit older, older dudes, older heads, and I have to believe that there's people out there that really like this band and are gonna nod their heads in approval at this one, and I'm hoping that's the case because th- this is a band that has been near and dear to my heart for a long time. At one point while I was still wrestling, I wanted to fashion some of my ring gear off of the logo of this album in particular. It never happened. I was going to do a whole heavy metal based theme with my ring attire, and I was going to do this one. I was going to do the cover from black metal, just a couple other things. And then hopefully, if that took off, it was going to be like a theme that I was going to go with where I'd continue to wear different sort of stuff and try to do some neat stuff that way. Maybe do something based off of From Beyond, Massacre's album. Just stuff like that. But again, it never happened. Much like many of my thoughts, hopes, dreams, projects, anything creative that I try to do just kind of either falls to the wayside or go becomes tragically it just implodes in tragic fashion. But that sad statement aside, we're talking about Spine of God by Monster Magnet. This came out in 1992 on Caroline Records. They are a New Jersey four piece. Uh, Dave Weindorf is the founding member, spiritual leader, guitarist, vocalist, lead songwriter for the band. He's been with them since the jump. There's multiple lineup changes in the band's history. On this one, you had Dave himself, John McBain on guitar, who helped produce the album, John Kleinman on drums, and Joe Calandra was on bass. That is the lineup. Uh, I first heard these guys on Headbangers Ball. They used to have a segment on there called Frantic Fringe where they would cover some bands that weren't quite in the underground side of metal things, but they weren't quite something that MTV and all the so-called tastemakers there or the music industry people when they were making the transition from grunge being the thing over hair metal, there were lots of bands that, and then they also, of course, they had their alternative rock with all the freaking like the Blind Melon and the Pixies and stuff like that, all the Husker Do's and all the what's his guy, uh, Frank Black, is that the name? Am I saying that right? But stuff like that, a lot of bands like that, all that stuff that you would see on Alternative Nation back then. But there were bands that kind of they would fall into gray areas where it's like, okay, we can't really put them here, but we can't really put them here. So they created, but they're more metally, and I think metal kids will probably resonate. It'll resonate with the metal kids a little bit more. So that's where we'll put them. So the first time I saw them was they had the video for Medicine, which is on this album, and they did a whole segment with them talking about the band and all that sort of stuff. And to me, this is a band that combines the aesthetic of 70s biker movies and old school psychedelic rock and the Sabbathier doom elements, lots of fuzzy overdriven guitars. They use all vintage equipment to get that vintage sound, which is very killer. I really appreciated that, always have. And then it's like it's it's just like a psychedelic experience. It's like the best way I can describe it is I'm gonna let them describe it. It's a satanic drug thing. You wouldn't understand. That's the best way to describe them. And I love this artwork. Fantastic stuff. The Rob Leacock is the guy's name. I just remembered the Leacock and chuckling to myself like a juvenile. But fantastic artwork. I've always loved that. Again, I was going to put it on my ring gear at one point, but never got around to it. But this is like, again, the best elements of psychedelic rock, 70s biker movies, and a walk through the village in New York City. just killer stuff. This is like to me, I would take. I didn't do this, but if this is to try to create the mood, if you will, baby. This is an eighth of mushrooms, a bong load of kind bud, a black light, and then just sail away, flying away as you're listening to this is the best way I could describe this album. It's fantastic, front to back, very much all killer, no filler on this. My favorite songs again, Medicine, Nod Scene, uh, Snake Dance is really good. They do a cover of Sin's a Good Man's Brother by Grand Funk Railroad. Uh, do a lot of covers. They definitely on all their various albums they will throw a cover here and there. They did a Hawkwind one on Super Judge. But my favorite song by and large has to be Spine of God.
I just had to get nice last night. My mind is so free, you wouldn't believe. I just had to gas a pig last night. My world is so full, you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. Nature's got away, brothers, scraping the bowl. I am the hurricane. I sold a hundred heads to a hundred heads that'll never come back. You know what I mean. Peace is what you get from the chemical king. Yeah, yeah. You don't yank on the spine of God. You get what you give. You know what I mean. Don't be surprised, there's a bug in your
I just love the way that thing, the way it builds and it builds and it builds till you get that killer riff and fuzzy that fuzzy rhythm. It's just that stuff. It gives me the goosebumps, baby. But yeah, that's fantastic stuff. That's stuff. That's what I grew up on. That's what I kind of when I was a young metalhead coming of age. This is the stuff that really resonated with me and had a lot of impact on me. This is sort of stuff like I can listen to a lot of this. I can listen to this stuff all the time. It never gets old to me. Um, there's lots of stuff like that, but again, they're one of those bands you never hear people talk about. I never hear any metalheads talking about Monster Magnet, and I know people like them. I know they're into them. I think they're one of those bands they just kind of fly under the radar, but then everybody's like, oh yeah, those guys kick ass. They're killing. And they had a good little run there. They had a couple albums that started to give them a little bit of mainstream notoriety, and of course they had a couple of songs that wound up on rock radio, and they got pretty popular for a bit there, and then they just kind of fell off like a lot of bands do. But those first few albums, probably up until I would say Power Trip, I'd say Spine of God, Super Judge, Dopes to Infinity, Power Trip. That's probably when they start slipping a little bit, but I've started picking up some of their later releases in hopes of eventually I might do album ranking of Monster Magnet and kind of go into the band itself in a little bit greater detail. But I got A Better Dystopia, which is one of their later releases, and they do a pretty cool pentagram cover on there. They do Walk in the Blue Light, which is or no, I'm lying to you. They do think they do be forewarned, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't want to be mistaken, so I'm going to find out real quick. I'm going to tell you. Okay, 14 seconds. But they do, and of course I can't read it because look at that cover. That is freaking that is insane. That is a satanic drug thing if ever there was one. But they do. Oh crap! If I could read that. Screw it. Go look it up for yourself. They do a pentagram cover. Anyhow. So yeah, man. So that's my that is my 5 420 friendly album bands. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't bore you to death. And yeah, thank you again for subscribing to my channel, for getting me to 420. Hopefully we're onward and upward as far as that goes, and I guess I'll see where this channel goes. It's been fun. It amuses me every day that anybody puts up with my mediocrity. I mean, it's a very forgiving corner of the internet here that I found, where they put up with my dumb channel and silly nonsense and incessant battling, but I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's keep going with these things. Like I say, I got some stuff in the works that I'll get doing in a little bit, and yeah, just having fun doing this thing. It's fun for me. I don't know about for you sometimes. Probably an endurance test to see if you can follow along with my nonsense for going on 40 minutes. But I do appreciate it. Thanks as always. And yeah, I guess we'll close it out here and say, this is Dan. Moonshine. This has been Moonshine talking. As always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin up on impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everybody have a good one. Take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next video. Later.